Most salespeople and a good number of sales managers think that sales are lost because salespeople are bad at closing. In reality, most deals are already won or lost long before you have that final conversation. Now, what's really important to understand, and what I'm going to talk about in this podcast, is that buyers don't suddenly decide at the end. Objections at closing, at the point of close, usually symptoms, and closing techniques are often about creating pressure, and they in turn will create resistance. So basically, people who rely on closing are doing it all backwards, and top salespeople have already got the close sorted out long before they get to that final conversation. So today, what I want to talk about is why great salespeople really close deals and why closing itself is overrated. So first of all, what are the myths? So a phrase you may well have heard is always be closing. That is true in a way, but not in the way that most people use it. So it is not about constantly trying to close the deal and move on. That's often how I see that phrase being interpreted. It is not about pressure tactics. It's not about rebuttals. You're not in some sort of a conflict. This isn't a debate. You're not trying to turn or manipulate the client around, which I've seen really bad salespeople will manipulate the client. And just think about it. What happens? You get a lot of buyer remorse. You get people changing their mind. You get a bad reputation, all this sort of stuff. People never come back to you. And some salespeople will use urgency tricks. Now, I'm a big one for using urgency as a way to initiate a decision, but that is only at the point where I know the sale is going to happen. I've already effectively closed that sale. It's about getting the decision made, which is a different thing altogether. So why do these traditional things fail? Well, first of all, buyers are a lot more informed these days. And one of the things that a lot of salespeople miss is that trust is often much more important than the techniques you're using. So what I sell, and if you've listened to my podcast before, you'll know that this is a common theme throughout. Salespeople are problem solvers. That's what we are. If you go in to manipulate, if you make the sale all about yourself, you are already 50% to losing that sale, at least 50%. People and buyers resist pressure. Nobody wants to be pressured. And modern buyers are much more influencing confidence than persuasion. So if you need aggressive closing techniques at the end, then I will guarantee you that something has gone wrong much, much earlier in the process. And that may well be why you're listening to this. And if the reason that you're listening to this is that you're having trouble getting those sales over the line. So let's start with when deals are actually won. So the first thing is, and a key stage is the initial discovery conversation, whatever you want to call it. Have you uncovered the real problem? Has the buyer felt that you understood them? Did they emotionally connect at the end, at the cost of inaction? Have you built up the pain point? Remember, the reason that they are taking time out from presumably a busy day where they've got lots of other things to do is that they've reached a point with the issue that they are trying to resolve where they know they have to take action. They've got to take it soon. If you haven't uncovered that stuff, you've already failed. You're already way behind the where you need to be, and your chances of closing are already starting to get pretty remote. The next thing is trust. We want to buy from people we trust. So did you sound credible? Were you calm? Were you consultative? Were you honest? How did you come across? Did you actually take time to listen to the buyer? Did you really hear what they were saying? Or did you just pitch? Did you just read through a brochure or give them the pitch that you give to everybody? You're not selling to machines. You need to connect with them. What about clarity? Does the buyer clearly understand the problem that they have, the impact that that problem will have on their business if they don't do anything about it? Do they clearly understand the solution? Do they understand what the next step is? If the buyers are confused, they're not going to buy from you. So the next thing that you may well find that is coming up a lot is objections. So price objections, delays, ghosting is even worse, where they don't come back to you at all or need to think about it. And I've just done a podcast on what that really means. But when you get objections, again, it all comes back to your initial discovery conversations. It's about getting clear on what their requirements are, what their problem is, what the cost to them of inaction is. So I'm not talking about the dollar price, the euro price, the pound price of buying your product. I'm talking about what is it going to cost their business if they do nothing? Because if you haven't defined that, if you haven't got them to explain that to you, then you don't know what the value of your solution is. And this is the big difference between price and value. The two are different. And if you don't understand that, you've already got a big problem. So a lot of objections will come down to weak discovery. Clients don't understand the value of what you're presenting. There's a lack of urgency because you haven't got clarity around what the cost of inaction is, what the pain is. And a lot of this will also come down to poor qualifications. So again, what a lot of salespeople do, what a lot of bad salespeople do, or salespeople who are feeling a lot of pressure, that they're not making numbers and they just are starting to feel desperate about getting deals, is that they will talk to anybody and they are not qualifying out the people who will never buy from them. So the thing to take away from this part of the podcast is that when buyers truly understand the cost of staying where they are, that's when urgency will happen naturally. So you need to understand that the close is often just a moment that the buyer verbalizes a decision they've already made emotionally. And this emotional aspect is really important. And I don't care whether you're doing business to consumer, business to business, there will be emotional elements. And again, if you've listened to other podcasts, you'll understand where that comes in. So what do top salespeople do instead of all of that stuff? And if you have been doing what I've been describing, then you really got to listen up, because if you carry on doing what you're doing, you're not going to fix the problem that you have. So top salespeople guide instead of applying pressure. They ask really good questions. So again, you need to look at the questions you're asking, if you're even asking any. And I've seen some salespeople who don't even have questions to ask. Top salespeople create clarity. They slow conversations down. They listen. They listen deeply to what the client is telling them. And again, this sounds ridiculous, but I've seen so many salespeople do it, and it's usually the ones who are struggling. They're not listening anymore. They're just waiting to speak. Top salespeople, I should say, will uncover the motivation, so they understand why they are having the conversation, why this person is taking time out from their busy day to spend time with them, and they will control the process very calmly. So this comes back to demonstrating confidence. Using pressure is not generally about confidence. Weak people try to pressure others. If you're very weak, if you don't understand what you're doing, you're feeling vulnerable, you'll apply pressure because it makes you feel like you're in control. If you are confident, it's a completely different story. So again, if you resort to using pressure, you really got to rethink your whole strategy. I recommend my course. Go have a look at it, but it will take you through all of this stuff in the detail that you need. You need to be genuinely curious. If all you're doing is pitching, you don't care who that person is. You might as well go talk to a wall, because the emotional connection you will create will be about the same. So you need to be genuinely curious, and the client needs to feel that you are genuinely curious about their issue. You are genuine about wanting to resolve it. If they don't get that, then you either need to rethink your approach or think about, start making some serious career choices here. And leadership is really important. So I've started releasing some podcasts on leadership, but you are a leader. When you're moving to sales, you are a leader. You are leading the client through a process to a conclusion, which results in you getting a sale and they getting something that really supports their business or their life or whatever it is that they are buying things for. So top salespeople are not pushing buyers forwards. What they're doing is removing the friction that stops buyers from moving themselves forward. And that is a very important distinction. You are basically letting the buyer drive the process so that they feel that they're in charge, but all the time you are very discreetly leading the whole process. So let's look at some practical things you can do here. Before you get to any kind of proposal, before you get to, I hesitate to use the word close, but let's use the word close. Just ask, does the buyer fully understand the problem? Are they clear about the problem that they have? Have they explained the impact that problem will have if they don't resolve it? Have they explained that in their own words? Because then and that's really important, because then you're getting a real insight into how they're understanding what the problem is. Is there a compelling reason to act now? So you need to do this in your early qualification. What's the level of urgency? Have you uncovered the decision criteria? Do you understand what the decision criteria are? Who is in the loop? Do you understand how that decision to buy or not buy is going to be created? And is there an emotional commitment, not just logical? And in most cases, there will be some element of an emotional commitment. And it may be as simple as building trust so that buyer feels that they can trust you to deliver a solution that will work for them. So if you want to break this down into very simple terms, the framework that you're looking for is clarity, trust, and then commitment. So you need to be getting very clear, establishing trust, and then commitment will come. If you're trying pressure, objection handling, and closing tricks, then this is why you're struggling, if that's the reason you're listening to this. So to conclude this podcast, and I've not really been holding back on this one, but this is really important stuff. If you're doing this wrong, you're continually going to struggle, and if you don't fix this, you're not going to have a good sales career. So the best salespeople aren't masters of pressure. This is not about pressure. What they are masters of is understanding, of clarity, and of building trust. And when those things are done properly, the close itself, it isn't a battle. It's just something that naturally happens. The buyer already knows the decision it makes sense, and they've probably made the decision to go with you some time before you get to the point of getting a contract sorted out or signing on the dotted line, whatever it is for you. So remember, if you feel your problem is closing, or if you're a sales manager and you feel that the issue you have with your salespeople is that they can't close, I'm going to suggest to you that it's not about closing at all. It's that they're not doing, or you're not doing, the early stages correctly. Because if you do those early stages correctly, you're only spending time with people who are likely to become clients, and closes will happen almost on their own. It's very easy to close off a deal that's been managed correctly from the start. So that is it for this podcast. Next time, I'm going to continue on the leadership front, actually. And we're going to be looking at, if you are a sales manager, and this actually applies if you are underperforming as well, because it's one of the reasons people come onto these podcasts. I'm going to be looking at how to deal with underperformers and the kind of things you can do, but also what leads to underperformance. So join me on Monday. That's when these podcasts come out. And I hope you found this one useful. Please remember to give me a like and a subscribe if you feel I've earned it. And please remember to check out what's going on. I've got a free course running or coming up very soon. And there is, of course, my consultative selling system program that I strongly recommend you take a look at. That's it from me. Bye for now. Just before I go, if you're in sales, you already know that effective communication with your client is essential to making sales. But unfortunately, most struggling salespeople that I've spoken to make the mistake of assuming that everybody communicates in the same way. Well, they don't. And in order to help you with that, I am running a series of 4 free webinars, and they start on the 2nd of June. And they run at 6:30 p.m. Sydney time, but that doesn't matter. If you're in a different time zone, that's fine, because they're all recorded. They're all about up to 30 minutes long, so they're pretty short. And I will take you through the 4 styles, how to recognize them, and what you need to do to change your approach so that you really connect with people very, very easily. So they're running from the 2nd of June. please go to the link in the description. And please remember to like and subscribe. That's it from me. Bye for now.